Hey now, what's up, everybody? Steve Bennett here from the 24-inch podcast and, of course, the Sportscasters podcast. Doing some really fun things on the Sportscasters. Talked to Kenny Albert the other day, fresh off his appearance at the World Baseball Classic. Got to hand it to Kenny Albert, calls all four sports. Kind of a funny story. One time I was texting with Kenny because I listened to old episodes of Howard Stern all the time, and they brought him up. They were having a boxing match between employees, and they said that they had tried to get Kenny Albert to call it, and he was going to do it, but then he couldn't because he calls all four sports. He had another commitment, and I was like, "Oh, Kenny, they're talking about you from this time, and do you remember this?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's great." I'm like, "You want me to record it and send it to you?" He's like, "Oh, that'd be great." And so I'm typing that. They start making fun of his dad for biting the lady or the panties or whatever, and they start to get really vicious. So I read him back, and I'm like, "Hey, man, I'm sorry, but they start to make fun of your dad. You sure you still want to hear this?" He's like, "Oh, yeah, they did that all the time." So he was used to it. But anyway, thanks to Justin and to Aaron for having me on the North-South Wrestling Connect, the North-South Connection, the wrestling YouTube page here. And I did the best Intercontinental matches at WrestleMania 1 to 14. And then I did the tag team matches 1 to 14. And today, something really fun, something that really reflects who I am as a wrestling fan and really who I am as a person. And I am going to rank the tier list, the WrestleMania 3 matches. WrestleMania 3, of course, the greatest WrestleMania of all time. Not really any debate there. And it was back in 1987. I was 6 years old at the time, going on 7. We got the pay-per-view. I remember going to Adelphia Cable headquarters Friday before the pay-per-view to get the box that we needed to hook up our TV to have the pay-per-view. And I had friends over for the event, and we got pizza from Picasso's, one of my favorite pizza places in Buffalo. We actually just had it yesterday too. And it was a great day. And since that day, watching the pay-per-view, I don't think any more than maybe 6 months has ever passed without me watching some portion of this event. I watch it over and over again. Like I watch Seinfeld episodes, or like I listen to Pearl Jam songs or whatever. It's just it's always been, and I have a movie for this as well, The Karate Kid. I watched The Karate Kid thousands of times in my life, probably at least portions of it. So I'm passionate about WrestleMania 3, and that brings us to a discussion about our tiers here. There's 12 matches, and we're going to break them down from immortal to decent. So we'll start with immortal. Then we'll have amazing. We'll have some beauties, some matches that were cool, and then a couple that maybe were only decent. But nothing here is a D or an F or bad, or don't let any of those jabronis, those smart marks, or anyone tell you that this isn't an amazing event, because it is, and I'm here to celebrate it today. And then probably on Saturday or Sunday, when I notice that other people are watching WrestleMania, I'll get in the mood and I'll put this on instead, because it's always WrestleMania 3 at my house. All right, let's get started where they do. I think I want to do them in order. And one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure there's 12 matches and there's 5 columns. So it's not an easy divide where I can say I'm going to have 3 in each or 2 in each. But I won't have any more than 2 immortals, and I won't have any more than 3 in any one category. So I'm going to cut immortals off at 2. I'm going to cut the rest of the categories off at 3. So that makes sense. Let's start with the first match. And I have to say, before I get to the first match, the event is already amazing. Before the first match, we can't forget about Vince McMahon's epic introduction of Miss Aretha Franklin to sing America the Beautiful. And that reminds me, if you're watching this, go down a little bit to the celebrities draft, WrestleMania celebrities draft that I did with Justin and Aaron and Jen and Tim, I think is the guy who's the Roger Goodell of the draft, I guess, the commissioner. And really enjoyed doing that. And Aretha Franklin was selected, not by me, but I will promise you all of my celebrities appeared at either WrestleMania 1, 2, or 3. So I didn't get past that at all. All right, so we're already amazing. Miss Aretha Franklin is announced. She does her thing. We start the night with Gorilla, Jesse, Bob Uecker, and Mary Hart in the booth. Now, let me tell you about the criteria here. I'm not just ranking, this match gets about 5 minutes, 5:37. I'm not just going to talk about the 5:37 that night. I'm considering everything that led up to the match, any promos they might have been done before the match, and then the match itself. So, for example, when I rate Steamboat and Savage, that grade starts on November 22nd, 1986, when the Macho Man drops the bell in the throat of Steamboat, one of the most heinous moves in the history of wrestling. And I thought Macho Man should have been prosecuted for that. But Jack Tunney was a jerk and a loser and didn't, I think, use his power as president to even punish the man, which is absurd. Anytime you try to kill someone with the ring bell, I think there should be punishment. But the punishment will come later on this night. Anyway, so we're going to start off with a tag team match, the Can-Am Connection. Tom Zink, Rick Martel will wrestle the Ace Cowboy Bob Orton, who was part of the main event, WrestleMania 1. He was in the corner of the heels in the main event, and his partner, Don the Rock Morocco, and their manager, Mr. Fuji. Now, they didn't do a lot of build for this match. There was some. And I love when I'll watch a random Superstars or whatever, and I'll see the work they were doing with the with Can-Ams, the little vignettes they would do, Jesse in front of the building, and there's all these women screaming, and he assumes that they're for him, and he opens the door, and it's the Can-Ams are coming into the building, and their shirts are all like ripped up. And I think they wanted to do more with the Can-Ams. I kind of envision the Can-Ams arc similar to what Strikeforce ended up being, maybe. Maybe if Zink never leaves, they end up being essentially Strikeforce and being the team that takes the belts off of the Hart Foundation eventually. But none of that happens here. This is one of the more mildly built matches, but I've always really enjoyed it. I love the finish. I love the energy. You know, this is where this is the moment where you're taking in the crowd and you're seeing all the people and you're hearing how loud they are, and the work in the booth, the goofing for Uecker, you know, who I knew at the time from television because he was at Mr. Belvedere, and I knew who he was. It wasn't like a new celebrity, but I don't think I knew how funny he was, and he's just really good here. And the whole thing together, I'm going to put it in cool for now. And one thing we may do is reorganize as we go. But for 5 minutes, I think it's the right amount of time. They don't overstay their welcome. And I think it's really fun. And I've always loved the finish on this match. So we'll put it at cool for right now. It's pretty cool. All right. Next up, Billy Jerk Haynes faces Hercules with Bobby Heenan in a match that was built. The Battle of the Full Nelson. And they were doing some stuff on Superstars. You know, Heenan challenges the world. And it's Billy Jerk who takes the call and comes down only to get suckered. And they really put some weight behind Hercules at the Saturday Night's Main Event before WrestleMania 3, where he's the guy who wins the Battle Royal, which is really a piece of the build to Hogan and Andre. But he's the eventual winner of that, and Billy Jerk is in near the end as well. So I like some of the stuff they did to build this, whether it be on Superstars. They do play a video beforehand, which I always loved about WrestleMania and special events at this time, when they would play the little videos, because they weren't as long and drawn out as they would become eventually. They were short and sweet, and just there's something great about them that I really love. Now, the match itself isn't very good, but the finish is, and there's this debate between Jesse and Gorilla about, you know, yeah, nobody won the match, nobody won the war, but certainly the battle was won. You know, we see some color here. Billy Jerk blades, and I keep calling him Billy Jerk. Before the match, Heenan with one of the most brilliant moments of the night, arguing with Mean Gene in the back about whether his name is Billy Jerk or Billy Jack, and I've called him Billy Jerk ever since. I'm debating between cool and decent. Let's put it in cool for now. I don't know if it'll be able to stay there, but there's some really great stuff there. It's not It's about 7 minutes and 44 seconds, and that's a little long for these guys. Maybe a little too long. All right, next, amazing. Hillbilly Jim with the Haiti Kid and Little Beaver wrestle King Kong Bundy, Lord Littlebrook, and Little Tokyo. And this is a ride. It's 3 minutes and 25 seconds of legendary WrestleMania moments. Never would it fly today, unfortunately, but it's incredible. Bob Uecker is incredible. I always thought, even as a kid, wow, Bundy was in the main event at WrestleMania II, and at WrestleMania III, he's in a gimmick match here at the beginning. And that always tickled me a little. But the whole match is built around Little Beaver antagonizing Bundy until eventually Bundy gets a hold of the guy, drops the elbow on him, and Jesse says that they're going to have to put him in a garbage bag to haul him out of there. The comedy is amazing. The commentary is amazing. The execution is great. I want to put it in Immortal. Not quite. That leads me to think maybe we go amazing. Probably not quite. There's too much great stuff here. We're going to go beauty for now, and we'll see. But it certainly has a claim potentially to Immortal. Just the wrong night. Like, I'm sure if it was part of WrestleMania 38 or 9 or whatever, I'd go right to Immortal with it. But can't do that here today. All right, match number 4. Harley Race with Bobby Heenan and the Fabulous Moolah defeat the Junkyard Dog. 422. It's a loser must bow match. And they don't get much time, and the ending is abrupt. They did certainly build this one. My daughter Paula and I, hi Paula, we always talk about how this country never had no king. This country never had no queen. We always joke about that line from the Junkyard Dog at Saren's main event. And they were definitely building this up, and they did a great job of telling the story until they got in the ring. And then I don't know what happened. They just didn't deliver enough in the ring, I think. I have a feeling that the build is going to keep it from decent, but we'll see. We'll put it at cool for now, and we'll see if it can stand the onslaught of the greatness of this card and this night. All right, next up, we got a tag team match, and there's a lot of guys out there. First of all, the Rougeau brothers are in the match, and they're wrestling the Dream Team. Now, the interesting thing about the Dream Team is at WrestleMania 2, the Dream Team had a nightmare at the Rosemont Horizon and lost the belts to the Bulldogs. And tonight, we see that the effects of that nightmare come to pass as we have the end of the team of Greg Valentine and Brutus Beefcake with Johnny Valiant and Dino Bravo as well as there. And what I love about this is Dino Bravo is on the outside instead of the inside, which I think is a huge break for everyone. But the match itself, they get 4 minutes, not a lot of time. The match is basically about the Dream Team and back-to-back Manias where it's a nightmare. And in the end, Brutus is left in the ring and they leave without him. He's out of the group. And it takes interference from Dino Bravo to help them win the match. But it's a nightmare. Again, a nightmare. The Dream Team and Mania nightmare. That's all you need to know. And we're gonna put it as decent for now. And we'll see if it can climb from there. All right, next up, one of the great attractions of the night, and it's Roddy Piper in his farewell match versus Adrian Adonis. And let me tell you about Adrian Adonis. One of the all-time great bumpers in that ring. And, one of the great wrestlers who's just not talked about enough. He's from Buffalo, New York, where I'm from, and we're proud to claim him. And he had a great night here, and the story is built great. So Piper is out for a while and can't do Piper's Pit. So they have instead the Flower Shop, which is Adrian's. when Piper returns, he beats the crap out of the set, and there's a showdown on Saturday's main event, and Adrian, Adonis, and Jimmy Hart, they spray the perfume that had Adrian into the eyes of Piper, and he's crying, and it's just, and we get to cheer for Piper for the first time in my life, at least, and that's pretty fun, and it's really well built, and it's a great match, and all of a sudden, out comes Beefcake to help Piper. And Piper puts a sleeper hold on Adonis, who made the mistake of letting Piper go just too early. It's wonderfully told. Gorilla and Jesse do a great job telling the story and mentioning that Jesse was once in a tag team with Adrian, the Northwest Connection. But really, really good. Most nights it's immortal. Tonight it's amazing. A great farewell. Two knuckleheads jumping in the ring to dance with Piper. The only thing negative about this match is that the terrible clippers they had. They could barely cut the guy's hair, and I know they had to finish the job later. And I remember seeing the picture of Adrian completely bald in the magazine, a month or two later. And that's halftime now. They call halftime. We get a break, and we come back with one of my favorite matches of the night, one of my favorite feuds of the night. The only thing I would change, and I understand why Tito is involved here. I do. But the only thing I would change about this Mania, and I don't know how we get Tito in, we'd have to find another way, but I would make this a handicap match for the tag team titles, and would have had it be the Hart Foundation with Danny Davis against the British Bulldogs. But instead, we have Danny Davis and the Hart Foundation with Jimmy Hart on the outside against the British Bulldogs and Tito Santana. Now, the story here is that Danny Davis has screwed both the Bulldogs out of the tag titles and Tito Santana out of the Intercontinental title. It happened to Tito when the Macho Man beat him at the Boston Garden with the Knucks. And, I think maybe later they realized that Davis was the referee there and tied him in. But more blatantly, he had screwed the Bulldogs on Superstars in February of 87 as the Bulldogs were champions. But because of Dynamite's back injury, they had to take the belt off of them. And they did a really creative thing where they cracked Dynamite with the megaphone, and he's down outside the ring. And Danny Davis is only interested in what's going on in the ring when the Hart Foundation are winning. And when Davey Boy's winning, he's interested on Dynamite on the outside. So they do a really great job with all that here. And I love the feud. I love the buildup. I hate Danny Davis with all my heart. He's eventually suspended for life plus 10 years. By that no good Jack Tunney, who eventually goes back on it, which is unbelievable to me. A guy could get a life plus 10 years sentence. Then a couple years later, he's back in the ring reffing. I never trusted the guy again. But one of my favorite matches of the night. We'll put it amazing for now. See what happens. All right. Love that match. Next, Butch Reed versus Coco Beware. And there's some discussion recently about Butch Reed on the 24-inch podcast. And I heard Aaron and Justin talking about it on one of their videos as well, the WrestleMania IV tournament matches. And one thing my partner Dave Rowlands mentioned is that there's been some talk on some shoots and stuff that around this time, Butch Reed was really unreliable. He would miss shots. If he didn't have a ride, he just wouldn't go. And there's a story that he missed the chance to win the Intercontinental title in Buffalo. I would have had to be there to witness that. And people try to refute that by saying, but he's in the locker room. But the locker room celebration with Honky Tonk was filmed the next day in Rochester. And apparently Reed had a ride there. I'm sure filled with regret. But, this is one. It's in an unfortunate spot because it's in between two of my favorite matches of all time. The best part maybe is that Tito Santana runs back and rips the clothes off of Slick, an outfit that's much debated by Gorilla and Jesse. I'm going to put this one decent for now. Decent, All right. The Piper match got 6:33. The tag team match got about 9 minutes. Oh, I forgot to mention about the tag team match. How great it is when they finally get to kick the shit out of Danny Davis in that match. The pile driver and the running body slam and everything he do to him. So great. I love that match. Should have talked about it longer. Anyway, speaking of loving matches, next up, 1435, Ricky Steamboat with George Steele defeats the Macho Man Randy Savage in the greatest wrestling match of all time. It's the Bret Hart of wrestling matches. It's the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. The build starts, like I said, November 22nd, 1986, the anniversary of the assassination of John F. Kennedy. And when you think of American tragedies, yes, you think of the assassination of Kennedy, but you also think of the near murder of Ricky the Dragon Steamboat at the hands of the evil Macho Man Randy Savage. And Elizabeth, not as sweet as you think she is, as she stood by and watched her man almost kill a human being. I was 6 years old at the time and could barely sleep for weeks, sick about the dragon, his condition. And we've seen as the weeks went on, his improvement. He had some speech classes. So speech was really affected. He had some classes there. He got better. He surprised the Macho Man, thanks to his friend George Steele, at Saturday Night's Main Event. A great moment. And they put together the greatest match. It's immortal. It's the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. Steamboat wins the belt. Now, the story, if you haven't heard it, is so I'm having a party at my house. And this is the match I'm waiting for, just as much as Hulk and Andre. Of course, I'm waiting for that. But this one is 1A, 1B. And right before the match starts, the pizza comes. Now, at the time, my parents wouldn't let us eat in the living room. So if you wanted to eat the pizza, you had to go in the kitchen. Well, all my friends went to the kitchen to eat the pizza. There was no way I was going to eat pizza during Ricky Steamboat and Randy Savage. So I stayed out in the living room, watched the match. To be honest, I didn't have pizza until after the event. My mom reheated it for me. But when Steamboat gets the victory and wins the belt, I remember running through my house into my friends, eating the pizza. Steamboat won the belt. Steamboat won the belt. What a day. What a match. Immortal. I will tell another story, too, real quick. Shout out to my friend Sean. I went to college with him, Fredonia. And good dude and a wrestling fan, a little bit younger than me. And I remember after college, he's a big wrestling fan. He still is. I remember telling him about this match and how great it was and invited him over to my house to watch it and playing it for him. He just didn't get it, and it broke my heart. It really did. Sean, almost as bad as anything any woman's ever done to me. He didn't get it, and, I just told him to leave. I asked him to leave. And I haven't talked to him since. Not true, but anyway, immortal, the greatest. All right, up next, another match I like a lot that I think is hurt historically by being the match after the match, right? And it's the Honky Tonk Man versus Jake the Snake, and Jake is there with Alice Cooper. This match, of course, was built in the Cindies as well, and Honky Tonk is on the snake pit and destroys Jake with a guitar shot, and there's still a debate to this day about that. Was the guitar properly gimmicked? Did it cause this neck injury? And I kind of take Honky Tonk's side on that, even though I'm not necessarily a guy who takes sides, but for Honky Tonk very often because of what he did to me in June of '87. But I think this is a really good match, and I know Jake historically doesn't have the best pay-per-view matches. They give him 7 minutes, and it doesn't feel that long. I think they do a really good job. There's a good finish. Alice Cooper is involved and gets involved and it puts the snake on Jimmy at the end. Honky Tonk gets the win. I think these guys did a really good job. I like this match. I'm going to put it in beauty. I think it's a beauty. And that feels right for it. The two in beauty, I feel pretty locked into. I don't think they're moving. I think that those will be our beauties for sure. All right, up next. Now talk about the match before the match and talk about a rough spot. It's the Killer Bees versus Nikolai Volkov and the Iron Sheik with Slick, who comes down with his clothes all ripped to shit, courtesy of Tito Santana earlier. And I just think about how dark the arena is when you see Hacksaw Jim Duggan coming down See, Hacksaw Jim Duggan was new to the company, and his first piece of business was to make sure that Nikolai Volkov never sang that no good Russian national anthem again. And when he starts singing it here at WrestleMania 3 in front of 92,000 people, we'll talk about that in a second, he just couldn't stand for it. He couldn't. And he comes down and he sits at ringside during the match and really screws over his friends, Killer Bees, by running in the ring, cracking Sheiky Baby with the 2x4, and getting the Bees disqualified. I'm going to put it at cool for now because it is cool. But that means we have too many in cool. So we'll have to do a little adjustment there in a second. All right. Now the main event. And what can I say about it? Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant. Here's what I can say. I've said this a couple times. If you haven't watched Aaron's breakdown of this match on this YouTube channel, please do, because he does an amazing job. And I'm not even going to try to equal him because he spent over 20 minutes doing it, and I don't have that kind of time because I'm already gushed about WrestleMania 3 for 26 minutes at this point. But look it is the most important wrestling match ever. It is the main event that every main event should be measured next to, and they'll never reach it. All 92,000 people in that building that night were there for this. Okay? They drew the house. Almost nothing else, as much as it matters to me, almost nothing else mattered that night. This is what mattered. And of course, the build is basically done on Piper's Pit. Initially, Hogan is given a trophy for 3 years as champion. And the next week, Andre's given a trophy, 15 years undefeated, but it's a smaller trophy. And Hulk comes out to congratulate him, and somehow that's a bad thing. He stole the moment or whatever. All this bullshit people say about Hulk. Andre walks off. Also, if we rewind a little bit, Andre had been suspended, but then he's reinstated. We find out Heenan is at the reinstatement. Why? Why would Heenan be there? It doesn't make any sense. Jesse's trying to figure it out. He can't. So then he goes to Piper's Pit, and he says he thinks something's going on. He says, next week, I'll bring Andre, you bring Hogan. And when they come together that next week, out walks Bobby Heenan with Andre the Giant. And he says, I'm here for one reason, to challenge you to a world championship match at the WrestleMania. And he rips the shirt and the crucifix and another famous line me and my daughter always say to each other, Hulk, you're bleeding. You're bleeding, Hulk. And then we're off from there. We have a great contract signing. We have all kinds of great stuff they did to build it. It's immortal, you know. It is immortal. And like, look at, there's two matches in this tier, but there's no separating them. One is the greatest, the most important piece of business the company ever did, and the other is just the best. So they're both immortal. And if I'm being honest, the gap between immortal and amazing is pretty huge. I'm going to leave this amazing line untouched. I think those are the next two best matches, and I think they're amazing. I love them both. Piper's match for the pomp and circumstance of it and the retirement and all that came with that. And then the tag match for the only thing I would like to improve with the tag match is when Davis gets the pin and gets out of there, they should be basically dragging him around. Like, he should be dead. You know, he shouldn't have been the one to hit Dynamite. Someone else should have done that. And then they should have dragged him on because he's dead for the pin, and then dragged him off and dragged him to the back. But still an amazing match. I'm nitpicking there. Beauty right now, I have Bundy, Hillbilly, and the little guys. And then I have Jake and Honky. I got 4 in cool. The tag match to open, Billy Jerk and Herc. I got JYD and Harley, and then I got the tag at the end, and that feels like too many. And I'm debating between these 3 and dropping one down to decent, where I have the Coco, Butch, and then another nightmare for the Dream Team. So what do I drop down? Do I drop something down? Or do I move something up? Is something is good enough to be a beauty? I don't think so. You know, you know what? It's WrestleMania 3, baby. And I'm going to tell you right now, that opener, that's a beauty. That's a beauty of the opener. Beauty of an opener. No doubt. I love it. Now we're set. That's the night. WrestleMania 3, March 29th, 1987. Pontiac, Michigan. I went to the Silverdome. I was in Detroit for Pearl Jam. We had some time. We went to the Silverdome, and it was gated up at that point. And I said, how close can I get for a picture? And it turned out not very close. The security didn't let me get very close, but I did get a picture of myself in front of it. Now, the last thing I want to say before I sign off is just the attendance. So there's this long debate about the attendance. Oh, it's this many people. It's this many people. Now, I'll just say this. I don't know, right? It's probably not 92,000. I'll admit that. But they say it's like in the 70,000s. But then you look at the capacity for football games, and it's in the low 80,000s. And if you see a picture of the building, it's packed. So I wonder, how did they pack the building and put people on the field and get less people than a Lions game? I don't know. I don't know if that's possible or not. But I guess it's for you to decide. For me, in my heart, it'll always be 92,000 because it's awesome. And that was awesome. And this was awesome. And I thank everyone at the North-South Connection. Please watch all the videos. If you enjoy WrestleMania 30, whatever it is, enjoy that as it comes up. This is the last tier maker for me beforehand. But hopefully Justin and Aaron will have me on the YouTube channel again, certainly for Seinfelds that we do and all the other stuff. But for now, I want to say hello to my daughter, Paula. I want to say Forza Azzurri. And that's it for me. WrestleMania 3 forever!